Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. Me, Femi Oladehin, who is the senior partner at Argentil Capital Partners. Hello, Mr. Oladehin, good to have you on the show today.
Hi, how are you?
I'm,
Good morning.
I'm fine, Femi. Good morning. I don't know if you were listening to the conversation that I had with the
Yes,
director.
yes, I was.
Yes,
Yes, I was.
yes. So, what is your own takeaway from yesterday's decisions from the Central Bank of Nigeria's MPC, and also perhaps what the director just told me earlier? Because I said one thing I gained from this insight, which has never been there, and I'm glad that I got that from this interview this morning, is that for every MPC decision, and this could also be a way of advice to the central bank, for every MPC decision or every scenario that they plan, it would be nice to also make us know what the trade-off is. That because we are raising this thing by 4%, the economy will contract a bit by 0.3%, which is this. That is actually what I took away. In fact, it's never been done. This is the first time that I'm hearing this really. So, Femi, speak to me, and I don't know if you also got that sense yesterday, or today and
Yes, I
yesterday.
did.
Yes.
Yes, I did. At the end of the day, this is look, that's pure central banking. I think that analysts would have done this even without the direction of the central bank. So we had done some analysis as well, just to get a sense of the implications of this. Look, let's go back to the policies. Remember the last time I was here and we talked about the central bank and some of the policies that were announced by the central bank at the beginning of the month, and how I was somewhat uncomfortable with a rush of papers that were just being released by the central bank. I think that what we saw yesterday was quite disheartening, in the sense that we have a patient who has cancer, right? And you've treated that cancer with Panadol and Alabukun for 8 months, and then you suddenly come and you slam that patient with chemotherapy, radiotherapy, and all sorts of rush of treatments at one fell swoop. Um, Economies don't work like this. And this is a major indictment on the central bank and the monetary policy committee and the government. This is something that should have been drip fed into the economy, allowed the market to adjust appropriately, price itself out, and then you start to get positive results. We expect another MPC in the next 30 days. And I expect them to do something similar to what they've done today, because 30 days is not enough time for you to be able to see the impact of policies bleed into data. I mean, something that the director mentioned was that they do a lot of analysis. I don't believe that the next 30 days is going to give them enough data for them to do that analysis. But look, are the policies right? We all knew that there was an overhang of naira in the system. Liquidity has contributed significantly to the inflation problems that we've had. But the CBN governor said something that's very interesting yesterday, and which is what I said to you the last time I was here, is that the drivers for inflation in Nigeria are not necessarily monetary policy related. Those drivers are mostly structural deficiencies that we've talked about over the last 30 years, and that governments have failed consistently and repeatedly to address those structural deficiencies. So monetary policy interventions, I do not expect would have the sort of impact that the central bank is talking about. A 900 basis point reduction in inflation by the end of the year is completely impossible, given the structural deficiencies that we have in the market.
Femi, if I get you right, what you're saying is that if the central bank continues on this path of hiking interest rates, perhaps till the end of the year, it will not get that desired impact because there are structural problems that are impacting inflation. Now, let me
Yes.
also, yes, let me play the devil's advocate in this instance. We've not had monetary policy meetings since July. So assuming we had monetary policy meetings since July, don't you think that we would have even gotten a 4% hike from July?
Yes,
So
so I don't
do
even
you
have a
do you
problem
do,
with
do
the
you
quantum of
understand
the hike.
that? I'm just
Now,
looking
I
at that
totally
too.
understand
Yeah.
that. I think what my point here is this: we've had literally 7 months of quietness from the central bank. During that period, inflationary pressures built to to the highest levels in 30 years. During that period, money supply grew to the highest level in 30 years. However, the exchange rate depreciated by literally almost 70, 80%. So my point here is this. In coming up with this policy announcements yesterday, they are okay. They are right policy announcements. But what I'm saying is it's too late to start to do that now. The horse is out of the pen, and what you're doing really right now is treating someone who's in stage 4 cancer with a rush of policies that you could have drip fed into the economy during the last 7 months, whilst you kept everyone waiting, and allowed these pressures to build up. Now we're faced with a situation whereby, businesses, policymakers, or policy victims, I'll call them, or maybe not victims is the right word, but the people who are impacted by these policies now have to respond to heavy-handed policies in a very short window of time.
Now,
And
will this be the fault of the central bank? Cardoso was employed in September. Emefiele, I think, left after the July MPC meeting. Is it? No, was it the July? No, no. It was Shonubi, I think, that did the July MPC meeting.
Shonubi did the
Yes,
July MPC
yes,
meeting.
yes. So you saw a lag from the fiscal authority, executive actually, to appoint a central bank governor. So Cardoso did not hold, he was appointed in September. So he wouldn't have even held a September meeting at that point. So excluding like a November meeting. So
Nancy, we're
yeah.
talking about an economy.
Yes, I understand.
At the end of the day,
no, Femi,
I'm not
Femi,
singling
let
out the
me land
central
on my,
bank
yes,
here.
Femi, let me land on
Okay.
my point. Where I'm going to actually is the coordination of this administration's policies from President Tinubu, as it were, because he has a fiscal mandate. He wants to achieve things within the fiscal mandate. He appointed a central bank that would bring down inflation, that will make prices, the pressure on prices now go down. That is why he appointed Cardoso. So if you take a look at both, how do you now see this administration's policies? I hope you understand what I'm trying to...
No. So
Yes.
I do.
Yeah.
Look, I think that we could all turn back the hand of time and find solutions to problems. 2020 is always great vision, right? But there's something that economists were consistent with, and I was consistent on this. You can't leave a central bank in an economy that is in a crisis. You can't leave it without substantive leadership. You can't have an MPC committee without substantive members for as long as the government did. That is something that we should all agree on.
Exactly.
And we are paying the price for that. That's really the key issue. We're paying the price for it because nothing happened for 7 months.
Exactly.
Now, the average Nigerian on the streets doesn't care that because it was a change of government. Their pockets don't care. At the end of the day, we're where we are today. Now, I believe that the policy announcements made by Governor Cardoso yesterday and the MPC, which was the outcome of the MPC, were right policy decisions. I'm not questioning the logic behind the decisions that were taken. What I'm saying is that this should have happened a long time ago. This should have been drip fed into the economy. And you allow the economy to play out rather than this shock system that we're getting at this point in time. Now, we all know today that the Nigerian economy is more or less, comatose, right? The structural deficiencies that we keep talking about have become such a drag on growth, such a drag on, production. It will be interesting to see what factory output numbers look like at this time. It will be interesting to see what the Purchasing Managers Index is looking like at this time, just to see what the outlook of policy beneficiaries are for the next few months. But I think that the central bank has to be consistent with its message, which is very positive for us. We know that inflation targeting is a key thing for Governor Cardoso and the MPC. So as the market reacts to that, we will see significant clear direction on where the economy is going.
Now, Femi, this brings me to the question of what is going on now at the National Assembly? Because yesterday also there were news around getting a term limit for central bank. Of course, they are talking about their act, amending their act and all of that. What do you think if this will bring in some kind of stability? And I hope the lawmakers are listening. to this, because I know a lot of them watch the program. In terms of should a central bank governor be there for 5 or 6 years, whatever they're debating, but in terms of stability. Now, let me give an example. President Trump, when he became the U.S. President, he appointed, because the Fed chair at that time, I think the time limits expired. So he appointed a new Fed chair, which is equivalent like a central bank governor here. When he lost the election to Biden, Biden did not remove the central bank governor. Biden is still with Jerome Powell, even though at a time, Trump was not happy with Jerome Powell's policies, because Powell was, hiking interest rates. Exactly, but Trump couldn't do him anything. Trump couldn't sack him. Biden came in and still continued with Powell, and Powell is still there now. So what does that mean in terms of stability? You mentioned something earlier, that Nigerians' pocket, or the money in our pocket, do not know whether there's somebody. It reacts, especially signaling from the central bank. So what will you tell lawmakers? Because it's not about politics. That area is not about politics, and I hope they understand that in terms of when they are amending the act, they should do right, not right by party. Because APC may be there today, another party may be there tomorrow.
And it's very important. Look, President Jonathan appointed Emefiele literally probably a year before his tenure was over, and President Buhari continued with Emefiele until the new president came and removed him for whatever reasons. The truth is that the central bank should always be independent of whichever government is in power or whichever party is in power, because that independence is fundamentally important for economics. And even for optics. The fantastic example you used with the U.S. and the decisions that were made for the Fed are quite important and good lessons for us to learn. The central bank is not the place where you play politics. It is the lifeblood of an economy, or especially of a growing economy. And you must be very circumspect in the way a central banker is presented. Look, speaking directly to the National Assembly, this country needs stability. We want clarity in terms of purpose. We want clarity in terms of policies. One of my pet peeves is that, last week, this same National Assembly announced that they were probing the ways and means financing. And I found that quite ridiculous, because almost 50% of the members who are probing something they approved last year, are returning National Assembly members. The ways and means financing happened under their watch. The current Senate president was the Senate leader at the last National Assembly. The key thing here is that, look, our economy is in a very difficult situation. And what helps us, especially for the key drivers of the economic growth, which is the private sector, is policy stability. Clarity from both the central bank and the fiscal policy drivers that this is the direction we're going. In fairness to this government, and I must commend them, they've been very consistent with their story. Maybe we can challenge some of the policies and the timing of their policies, but in terms of the story, they've been very consistent, and that is very good for business. Now, what we want to be able to see is a continuation of this consistency and timing to ensure that we are responding to issues before they happen, not after they've happened. That is extremely important for economic growth on a go-forward basis.
Now, that brings me to the next question around the policies or responses now, the responses that you've seen in the last few days. Some people have criticized this government to say that it's a knee-jerk reaction, that if they had it all sorted out and all coordinated, we wouldn't have been in this problem. Or when President Bola Tinubu announced, no, fuel subsidy is gone at the Eagle Square here in Abuja, that he would have known that that pronouncement would have cascaded us into this quagmire which we are in right now. Are you satisfied with the kind of responses, as it were? Now we have an economic advisory committee that was constituted, a tripartite one, constituted over the weekend. The Minister of Finance has spoken about youth unemployment benefits, setting up of a consumer credit scheme. Labour was protesting now, it has shelved it. Labour is also having its own issues. On the central bank side, there are reforms currently ongoing concerning Forex. BDCs are now being allocated $20,000 US dollars. So So it's a whole lot. Like I say on the show, this president is an economic president because it gives me sleepless night. I don't know which one to hold and to announce. Or like Buhari, so every
So,
day
so,
you're,
so
so
Nancy,
yeah.
it's true. It's true. I would say that. Look, and I wouldn't choose my words, so I'm going to say it exactly the way I feel about it. Look, I would say that we have a president who, in fairness, has very good intentions. His rhetoric and the rhetoric from his government, give you the impression that, look, they have good intentions. Now, I've always said that good intentions must always be matched with proper analysis, proper data, and timing of your policies. The president, for example, announced, fuel subsidy was gone. Between the two of us, Nancy, we know today that fuel subsidy is back in Nigeria, and it's back probably to the
Higher.
same tune that it was
Yeah.
prior to when that announcement was made. Now, again, it was because there was not a lot of rigor that went into that decision as to how should you go through this and what is the best solution in the long term. Now, I believe that lessons have been learned from that announcement, which is why you're seeing a lot more quietness and circumspection from especially the president when it comes to policy announcements, as well as leaving. And that is very positive because he's leaving that to the people who he's appointed, who obviously he trusts with the economy. So the announcements that were made, yesterday, again, I would say this, we're 8 months late. If you were going to pull subsidy, you were going to let the naira, effectively trade. We should have known. Every analyst who did economics in O levels knew that those announcements were going to be inflationary. You couldn't have a 300% increase in fuel prices without expecting an inflationary backlash. You couldn't allow the currency to trade, given the naira overhang that Buhari and Emefiele had cursed the Nigerian economy with, and without the naira literally going to where it's gone to today. So analysis should have told them that there were going to be, domino effects of those policy announcements, and the government should have been ready. I have a problem, and I've said this consistently, with inflation numbers being released by the MBS. I think it's misleading, and I think it gives even the central bank, some difficulty in making the right
Why do
policy
you think it's
decisions.
misleading? Do you think the numbers should have
And
been higher or lower than what they do?
conversation the last time I was here. There is no way you will tell me that prices in Nigeria over the last 12 months have gone up by an average of 30%. It is not true. Wherever it is you are, prices have gone up by an average of 50% at the minimum across board. It doesn't matter what service or good talking about. So that data is definitely flawed. It's either the Federal Office of Statistics is using, the NBS is using, a flawed basket, or whatever analysis that they're doing with the data they're getting is not delivering the right data.
Okay.
Data is flawed. It's as
Oh,
simple as that. And the policy response to flawed data is always going to be flawed. That's where the problem is.
Femi, I'm afraid we have like a minute or so, a minute 30 seconds, and let me put this in for you to answer. Inflation, galloping, yo-yoing, naira, and all of that. What do you think? How do we get stabilized? That's one. Then number two, with all of these crises we're having, what do you think is the most dangerous economic risk that you're seeing? Very quickly.
No, thanks. So the most dangerous economic risk that I see is significant deflation in growth.
Okay.
And that will be disastrous for us as a country because we have an economy, a country whose population is growing by about 2 to 3% on an annual basis, and GDP is around 3%. So effectively, GDP per capita has shrunk dramatically over the last couple of years. I think that's a major risk, both to the stability of the country and on a go-forward basis, the continuous existence of the country. Now, what is the big elephant in the room? The big elephant in the room is that the government has to be able to stabilize the economy, both from an inflationary perspective and a growth perspective. I think consistency is key. As the government continues to remain very consistent in its policies, in its announcement, and in the key drivers for its policy and policy formulation, I think the economy is going to respond positively. And that, for me, is probably the biggest takeaway
Okay.
from what I saw from the MPC yesterday.
Okay. Thank you, Femi. It's always nice speaking with you, but time unfortunately, is not always our friend.
That's okay, that's we would
Yeah.
always do it another time.
Yes, we'll do it another time. The MPC was yesterday, so I needed to speak to these people, but it's okay. We'll do it again another time. Have a fantastic
Thank you,
day,
Nancy.
my friend. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.